And when I do introduce you to the inner climate method, what we've had people tell us that it all makes complete sense. My life makes complete sense. But I don't say you don't want to do this overnight. Over the next 14 days, we bring this into just one new area of your life.
Today, I think, we keep getting questions on holistic medicine, transforming yourself. And, obviously we transform people from the outside in, but I think what's more important is transforming someone from the inside out. And, today we've got a very special guest. And if you're looking for transformation in not just skin and everything else, but your emotional well-being, just, your everyday life, we have an amazing guest. You're in luck. So joining us today is Nidhi Pandya, Ayurvedic doctor and coach who's championed a practical yet profound approach to help aid solutions in every aspect of human life. And, thank you so much for joining us, first of all.
Thank you so much for having me, the two of you. I'm so excited to have this conversation.
This is fun for us.
We are too, because we get to learn a lot today.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I want to be like, what's Ayurvedic medicine? Explain it to us. Yeah. But we're not going to get there that quickly.
After being fully immersed in the world of Ayurvedic medicine, and you kind of poked some holes in some of the issues that it had, you have since coined your own term, the cosmic alignment method, and where you're blending, Ayurvedic wisdom with 15 years of clinical practice. And you've come up with something that is called the 21-day radical transformation program. And you've got an amazing influential social media presence. And from everybody we've talked to, they say that this, your ability to discuss and pick apart and put together for the rest of us is unparalleled, the way you describe your role in Ayurvedic medicine. Please welcome third generation practitioner. Listen, you are here to help us explain how we can fix our lives, because I'm
not going to say a word. I'm just going to listen, which is impossible for me.
I wanted to start self-included because I've read some of the tenets of Ayurvedic medicine. We know, and we kind of talked off camera beforehand. Give us your take on Ayurvedic medicine. I mean, we look at all the holistic practices in medicine. How is Ayurvedic medicine different, or how is it the same?
Right. So I'm going to do a lot of myth busting here, if you're okay for that.
Love it.
Completely fine.
Okay. So firstly, I would not call it Ayurvedic medicine, because Ayurveda literally translates into the science of life. If it's to do with life, Ayurveda has it covered, which means prevention and treatment of diseases, but how you live, how you eat, how you interact, how you sleep, how you meet, how you greet, just all of it is covered under Ayurveda. You're right. The medicinal part of Ayurveda is really what has popularized Ayurveda. And that's why I understand that people call it Ayurvedic medicine. But basically what Ayurveda does, and if you want to talk about it from the treatment and prevention point of view, it looks at the whole person, not the disease. But more than anything, the work is about healing and not treating. And they look quite different. You can get a treatment your entire life and you can be able to maintain, somewhat of a lifestyle, but healing is very different. There's a lot beyond just the physical symptoms being eliminated. There's energy released in that healing. And Ayurveda, uses how you eat, how you live, how you speak, how you sleep, all of that. Everything that has to do with human life is covered by Ayurveda.
We should put your course in every medical school in America, because in medical school, and we've both been to medical school and lots of, residency years, they just teach you to diagnose and treat. And that's allopathic medicine, but that's the beauty that you bring the Indian, the Ayurvedic type of the holistic approach. Again, he's an osteopathic doctor. I'm allopathic, which is very interesting because they teach more of the holistic approach where he went to medical school than where I did. But you take it even one step further. Now, how come your approach is a little different?
So, I grew up with Ayurveda. My grandfather was an Ayurvedic healer. I grew up in a large joint family in India. So to me, Ayurveda was the first language. I initially didn't plan on learning it. I think the universe planned and put me in this place. And I was a very curious child. I was a very sensitive child, which kind of worked in my favor because I always asked like what makes people sick and what makes people tick. And I looked around and I had this landscape, this playground, this research lab. But at the same time, all the principles and the tenets were just passed on to me because I was immersed in it. And that is wisdom, that's not information when you grow up like that. And of course, it was very natural for me then to get into the Ayurvedic education, to get a formal education eventually. And when I went back when I went to the normal world of the conventional Ayurvedic practice, I realized that this was not how I was raised. How I was raised was drastically different.
Interesting.
And then that's when this exploration began and said, how do I take what I received as a young girl? And then how do I continue to have an existing practice with that wisdom rather than all these prescriptions, practices, and information that's out there?
It's so interesting. The way you describe it almost sounds like a religion that's passed down, from generation to generation. The reason why I was raised Catholic is because my parents were and their grandparents. He's raised Jewish because, that's just how it was. It almost sounds like that type of philosophy. Tell us if that's correct or not, if I'm using a proper analogy, but where was the disparity? Where did you see how, again, when we say Ayurveda, we assume it's across the board, but you're saying it's not necessarily that way, or at least it wasn't the way you were raised. How is that different?
Do you mean to ask how is it practiced differently today?
I'm kind of where you said that there was such a drastic difference between the way you were taught versus the way that we conventionally think of Ayurvedic medicine today.
Right.
And where was that gap, and how did you bridge that?
Right. In the world out there, I think the way we take in information today is just, it doesn't become knowledge. There's information that's abundance of information. All of Ayurveda that I saw was just being practiced academically, taught academically, which meant that, it wasn't being internalized the way. Now, the problem is that the first tenet of Ayurveda, the very first tenet of Ayurveda is that all disease starts when you lose wisdom. The word is pradnya pradha in Sanskrit. And wisdom is what's within you. Wisdom comes from inquiry. Wisdom comes from insight. It does not come from information. When I started working with people, my clients, because I'll be honest, I started conventionally, right? When you practice, when you had a formal education, you do what others do. And when I started, I realized I wasn't feeling fulfilled because all of these women that I talked to, people I talked to, they were moving from one expert to the other: homeopathy, acupuncture, traditional Chinese medicine, conventional medicine. And, while you get relief in the moment, because of course the expert knows better than you, this whole idea of somebody knows better than you, what does that do to you? You lose confidence, you lose wisdom. And that was very counterintuitive because I learned Ayurveda in a way that it empowered me. I'll tell you, growing up in a family of 14 people, I would say health was never the fear of disease. Health was never the fear of disease. In fact, it was just the freedom that came from being well. But when I went into my practice and I saw the world around me, I saw all of these people who were ailing, and I moved to the West, I realized that for most people, health is just avoiding disease, living in the fear of disease.
So true.
And, that took me on a whole different journey. And I said, I got to do this right because I'm doing this for my fulfillment, to be honest with you. And I'm going to see this. When I started Ayurveda, there was nothing lucrative about it. 9 out of the 10 people that I spoke to in the US, they could not even pronounce the word. They had never heard the word. They were not even curious. And I still wanted to do it because that's what my heart's calling was. So I had to do it right. And then this is the reason why I do what I do today.
14 people in your family?
14 members of my family.
How many brothers and sisters?
So we're 7 kids, 5 girls, 2 brothers. And then there are 3 brothers who married, 3. So 3 brothers, they had 3 wives, and then my grandfather.
That's amazing.
All lived together, one apartment.
I just had to ask, sorry.
Wow.
It was a lot of fun. It was just too much fun.
That's incredible. That's wonderful.
It's interesting that you said that 9 out of 10 Americans didn't even know what Ayurveda was. And that's so true. I wonder how you feel about that now. And the only reason I ask is because, we see this trend. It's so funny how for the longest time, and you had alluded to it earlier, the way we're taught in medicine is ultimately to treat a particular issue and not find the underlying issue. Now, we can talk on this later, but we have built a regenerative medicine clinic in Mexico, and now we're looking at regenerative therapies and things like that. But
so we can live forever.
Yeah, but when we look at really what causes disease, to us it was aging. Aging was the disease, and as you get older, things slowly start breaking down because of diet, lack of exercise, sedentary lifestyles, all these different things. I wonder what your thoughts are now with cleanses and more awareness about meditation and certain things, where at least on the West Coast here, East and West Coast, I think, maybe in between, we're slowly getting there.
Yeah.
But I think we're becoming much more aware of some of these potentials. So I'm curious to see your take on that. Have you seen an evolvement at all here?
To be honest with you, I think it's drastically different. And I think the pandemic also has a lot to do with it. I think for the first time, we questioned our system. And we said, look, there's something deeper that we need to crack. And almost everybody, right? Any conscious individual, and honestly, even it kind of led to consciousness as well.
Of course.
So I think the pandemic, while it was sad, was an essential point. And I would say today, because I live in New York, I would say 8, if not 9 out of 10 people have heard of Ayurveda and have kind of, dabbled in it a little bit.
Let's go back to the cosmic alignment method. There are 3 principles that you really speak about. Tell our viewers and listeners, how would you describe this method?
Right. So the cosmic alignment method, of course, it's a result of my agony of saying that, listen, this is not supposed to be just you give me information and I take this prescription, I take this practice, and then I feel more disempowered. My symptoms might feel better, but inside I feel more despair. And I said I had to do something about it. So I went back to the top, the basics, which is cause of disease is loss of wisdom. And at the same time, there was another tenet which kind of caught my attention from the Vedic wisdom, from Ayurveda, which said, as is the universe, such is the human body. As is the human body, such is the universe, which meant that if I look at patterns outside, I can actually understand my body within. So I just had to do that. It's like this, right? When we're born as babies, we need to eat from the mother's breast. We don't need to consult an expert nutritionist. As well as the deer knows that it's plant-based. It's not wondering. And the tiger doesn't wake up at 5 a.m. because it's good for my health, right? So I said, we know. I just have to find the way back. And at that point, I would say I already had 10 years of practice, working with people. And I stumbled upon what I would say 3 main principles. And those 3 principles govern everything on the planet. It's what creates life. It's what sustains life. How we eat, how we live, how we love, all of it. And once I saw those, and I can share them with you, but once I saw those, I was like, I can't unsee them. I read them in between the lines of my Ayurvedic texts. Every interaction became that way. And I said, this is cosmic alignment method. This is just aligning with the cosmic wisdom. And you're having tools. So it's not woo-woo. It's, something that you can understand, comprehend, internalize, and follow. And I would say since then, I can tell you that my life has breakthroughs every day. As long as I am living with those principles, and I think the hundreds of women, I've introduced this formally only 6 months ago, and hundreds of women have done this. And I think the breakthroughs we've witnessed has far exceeded our expectations.
Wow.
So the cosmic alignment method just brings you back to your wisdom by understanding what makes life on this universe thrive. 3 simple principles. That's all you need. Mind, body, spirit.
Very similar to the 5 principles of Ayurvedic medicine, right?
I feel like that is an adaptation, but there's no 5 principles that I've read, and I've read from the classical Ayurveda. But of course, I understand it's 5,000 years ago. So I think more modern variations bring those principles.
But most of it is mind, spirit, body, right?
Yeah. And yet I would say, right, now yoga has become reserved for the spirit and the mind, and then Ayurveda has moved towards the body. When it's not like that, they work quite in tandem. And I did not want to follow different, like personally for me, right? Because I grew up in a very spiritual family. Like I had access to crazy amount of philosophies and practices. So I said, I don't want different practices for my mind and my body. It shouldn't be like that because we're just, so I think these principles like really became that bridge between the physical world and the spiritual world.
For all the viewers and listeners, so we're slowly understanding, mind, body, spirit. How do you link those together? Bring me through your day. I mean, one thing you said to me was that you have breakthroughs every single day as long as you follow these principles. Give me your perspective. You wake up in the morning, go.
My day will not look very different from anybody who's, you would say wanting to live a good life. And I'll go through my day. Yet, it's the consciousness that I put in it. It's the choices that I'm making. So most of us, you may make the same choices. Others may make the same choices, but you don't know why you're making those choices. I think when you make the principles, all your choices become, when you follow the principles, all your choices become really easy. So I'll just take you through my day really quickly.
Okay.
If it's a good day, I like to wake up at 5 a.m. I will meditate for 45 minutes. I will go around Central Park. These days, this is what's happening in the last couple of months. I'll go around the reservoir, Central Park. So I'll go for a little jog, a little walk. I'll come back. I have a 15-minute yoga routine that I do. I send my daughters to school, so I do a little bit of that kitchen, oatmeal, etc. This is where it comes in, right? My cues that I'm giving you guys hints for what those principles are. The breakfast is always warm and moist. It's cooked because the day outside is sluggish in the morning. So the body is sluggish as well. There's congestion sometimes. So our food in the morning, there's always movement before food to warm things up. And then the food is warm. So you can get really started and you can work with the sun. When the sun peaks, you're at your best focus. I work till, I would say, 4 o'clock. I love the work I do. I'm lost in time and space. I'm dissolved, complete dissolution. And at 4 o'clock is when I start slowing down my day. As it gets windy outside, I can feel those wind in my joints. I want to stretch, want to yawn, and I want to honor that. And so then I start kind of settling in for the rest of the day. What I get into my lunar at the end of the day. And then depending on the day, we will do more lunar practices. Music is always an active part of my life, spending time with my girls. I live alone with them in the city. I'm a 16-year-old and an 11-year-old, spending a lot of time with them in the city. If it's a good day again, I'll go to bed by 9:30. I do journal, so 3 pages of journaling, a little foot massage at night, and a lot of humming, which again is a great tool, and we can talk about why. But I like to get into the depths of every tool. Like if you give me a concept and if I cannot break it down to its deepest, I will lose sleep. So clearly, if I've been sleeping well, and if I can get to bed by 9:30, 10, and 5, these are good days.
Yeah.
What would you do if you lived in California? It's sunny every day.
It's sunny every day. No, that's maybe I should reconsider, and maybe I should move here. I think it's going to give me more hours in the day.
You would have clientele coming out the door because people in LA and California love this because this is fantastic.
The interesting part, it sounds like a Californian's day as well, minus the Central Park.
Right.
But the idea of...
And the wind.
Yeah, and getting up and going for a hike and do...
Are you trying to make me jealous?
No,
we're getting you to move here.
Yes. I think you'll love it here. How does this now relate to the Radical Transformation Program?
Okay.
Using these tenets.
Right. So firstly, 21 days, because I think that's how much time it takes for most people to kind of wire and to rewire your brain and to kind of really internalize some habits.
Right?
Yeah. So it's 21 days. Somehow it just works perfectly. But I want to talk about the first tenet. And I think I realized that's where the magic lies. And that is also another method that I call the inner climate method. Okay. And I'm going to do this with both of you. Okay.
Go for it.
So the whole idea is, why is Earth the only planet where life exists, right? In this entire Milky Way? Because there was something about this that was right, the climate. For 4.6 billion years, from single-cell organisms, we've become like these crazy intellectual beings, only because the climate was right. And now, when the climate has gone wrong, we're all questioning. We all wonder that, will we make it? So the climate was right? Similarly, our body has an inner climate. And I don't know how Ayurveda doesn't articulate this as well, but it's everywhere in between the lines. So we have there's an optimum inner climate. And when you can really live and come back to that inner climate, life thrives, because we are the universe to these trillions of microorganisms that live. And, for anything, even you buy a plant, right away, what is the climate this plant needs? So every life needs a certain climate. So let's talk about what that inner climate is. And I'm going to do this with the two of you.
Okay.
All right. So anybody who's listening can do this as well. So if you can take your palm and you can just exhale, cup it and exhale into it a few times. What was that? Was it warm? Was it cold?
Warm.
Was it dry? Was it moist?
Moist.
All right. Our blood, warm?
Warm.
Moist?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Mother's milk?
Warm. Moist.
Moist. All right. Things go in Florida, even in California.
I see a pattern developing here.
Yeah. I basically am a pattern seer. That's what I am, right? Florida in March.
Warm and moist.
Great life. Warm and moist, right? People talk about macrobiotic diets, fermented foods. Warm and moist. What is anger? Hot, cold, warm?
Very hot.
Hot, all right. Relationships that don't go anywhere, cold, stagnant. But love is warm and moist.
Very much so.
The probiotic environment, which is nothing but good bacteria, which grows in places that is warm and moist. So the idea is they're the inner climate of our body, mother's milk, reproductive fluids, which literally create life, where sun and the moon, the heat and the dryness of the sun, balanced by the lunar, the more moist and the cooling aspects, create warmth and moisture. We all understand this, right? If you were to wash your hands too many times and it felt dry, it would feel wrong. If it felt sticky, it would feel wrong. But if it's moist, it would feel right. You're sitting in a room, cold feels wrong. Hot feels uncomfortable, but warm feels right. So that place where life thrives within our bodies, that perfect balance of solar and lunar, is warm and moist. And that is your optimum inner climate. So when I work with people on the 21-day radical transformation, we learn to bring warm and moist to every single area of your life. Like triggers feel heated and rushed. Lethargy feels sluggish and cold. So we say, let's take every area of your life and let's see how can you bring warm and moist to it. Whether it's your food, whether it's your exercise, whether it's your relationships, whether it's how you sleep.
It sounds great externally, right? How do you go about doing some of these things? I mean, obviously you have a thriving practice that's built off of these philosophies. And for you to tell me, all right, let's bring some warmth and moisture into your life. Give me some examples. How do we do this?
Absolutely, right? Let's talk about diet, right? Simple foods. So simple. So in Ayurveda, all foods, if you look at every Ayurvedic recipe, it's warm and moist. You start off with a good fat. You always put some spices in it. Foods are always cooked, right? Because if you study evolution of humans, we actually our brain started working. We were just like other animals. We were very primitive when we started cooking our foods, right? So we cook our foods, you keep them warm. It also releases moisture. You add the spices, you add the good fat ghee, which is a superhero superfood today. So you bring in warmth and moisture through the elements that you bring in. But you also bring, so that's, for example, that's one area of your life. That's very basic. It's a very basic start. But at the same time, you also design your day where you balance your solar, your doing, with your being, with your lunar. You create enough action. Solar is anything that dries you out, that heats you out. That's what the sun would do, whether it's caffeine, whether it's working too hard, whether it's going too much. But then you also mindfully bring lunar elements. So when I work with people, we have entire toolkits and we evaluate our lives and say, where am I? We also evaluate symptoms, right? Inflammation, solar or lunar? Solar, right? Obesity, lunar. Okay. So we start first by seeing where is your climate at? So we work with people to say, anger, rage, acidity, inflammation, very solar. And then there's, cholesterol, block in your arteries, obesity, very lunar. And then we say, now we look at all the tools that are available to us, the solar through your food, through your life, through your exercise. And there's other meditative tools, there's breathwork tools. As you have the entire a la carte menu, you pick what works for you. And you come back to your warmth and moist. But we do the same thing for your mindset as well. So we start examining the triggers. When you're triggered, you're in a place of this kind of hot rush. So you've used your tools, you've practiced with breath work, with different tools. You can actually feel it. You can sense your body coming to warm and moist. You feel very, very safe. So it's not just, oh, this breath work will work for you. I want you to have the experience. I want you to see the heat. I want you to see it settle. I want you to feel the grounding, and I want you to feel warmth and moisture. And we've tried it. We've tested it. We've seen how well it has. I will be honest, it's far exceeded my expectations, because we do this very systematically over a period of 21 days. We first teach them the code, then you practice the code, and then we master the code. The 3 parts.
And most of it is in the mind. It's control through the mind.
The word control is the should, have to control, because this is the state of flow, right?
Okay.
So when you're doing, and yet you're being, you've learned, you've internalized. So the way we learn the code is like you internalize it. I tell everyone to go and feel the codes, to look at the sun and the moon, to look at their own symptoms. And we can all look at the qualities of our symptoms. Is this too hot? So we've conducted it in a way where by the end of it, people were like, I didn't even feel like this was any effort. If it requires effort, then you're already bringing rigidity. There is no flow. You're being while you're doing, there is flow. So the goal is complete effortlessness.
That sounds amazing. Having 3 toddlers and a practice sometimes effortless is definitely not one of those words that falls into my lap. But let's say you take on someone who's very analytical, like myself. And where would be the first step that you would guide me to? Because I think a lot of these principles, it's a lot all at once. It's second nature to you, but to come in and alter a lifestyle, to look at, essentially change your perspective on everything. Sounds mind-blowing. It sounds difficult in the beginning. How do you crack the code right off the bat?
I think that's a great question, because we have a lot of doctors as well. Actually, I don't know how, but we've got doctors in our programs. Each cohort has about 15. Out of 15, there would be all 2 or 3 doctors. And
they're the toughest nut to crack.
You'll be surprised, because something in their own system has left them questioning.
They're very
so they
open
come
to
here.
it, yes.
So it's amazing, right? Yeah. Because you wouldn't sign up for this. No, so I don't even offer you my perspective in the beginning. The first 4 days, you do your work. So this is where we start, right? You sit and you talk about everything that you're carrying in your mind and body, right? So you write it down. And then I give you a little chart full of adjectives. And, there's no classification, there's no categorization. And you just start circling. Suppose, for example, you say, oh, I have acidity. And then you'll see an adjective. You'll say, okay, hot. You'll see the symptoms, all your symptoms, and where they fall in their adjectives. And then you'll be like, oh, this sounds remarkably similar. I have anger in my mind. I have acidity in my body. And I have, so you'll start seeing that they all fall. There's a certain spectrum. Then,
all I could see right here was that I'm already calculating, wait, what percent of these did I get right? And what did I get wrong? I was like, wait a sec, am I doing this right?
So that's the thing, because there's no right answer. It's amazing. You just listen to your body and I guide you through it. And there's a lot of little meditative exercises, a lot of introspection. So I take you back into your inner world quite a bit. At every single stage, you go back into your inner world and you start understanding what's happening, what's brewing there. So it's very easy. Anybody can come. Like my 6th grader can do it, right? It doesn't hurt at all. In fact, she does it. Of course, she's born to me, so she's a little bit more immersed in it. Yeah. But so that's the first step. Then the second step is then when I introduce you to the codes. And when I do introduce you to the inner climate method, what we've had people tell us that it all makes complete sense. My life makes complete sense. But I don't say you don't want to do this overnight. Over the next 14 days, we bring this into just one new area of your life. I will never tell you have to eat this. I will just give you principles like cook your food, spice. So we bring it to your food for 3 days. Then we bring it to your mindset for 3 days. And I tell everybody, do as much as you can. But you'll see that people end up going all in, because they're like, I can finally decode my life and what I've been carrying within me for years. And then the process of healing begins thus.
It's interesting because this sounds amazing. And the ultimate goal is to get someone to really a state of wellness, right? And to be able to, in a sense, have a life that is filled with happiness and wellness, and you just feel complete. What does that true wellness and power look like to you? And what does it mean to you? And how do you get these people there? How does the people that come into your courses graduate.
Asking for a friend.
Asking for a friend.
Yeah. And it's so funny. Can I just tell you that the people who ask the most questions in the beginning, like the analytical minds, and they're questioning everything. So they're not, actually it's not questioning, it's questioning, which is very different.
Very different, sure.
So the most questioning people, like the last 4 days, the mastery phase, I open up to I'm like, you can ask anything. There'll be people who have nothing. They're like, we understand it. There's nothing.
That's powerful.
So, and we have like people writing to us all the time, even months later. So, but basically what graduation is, when you've learned, so when you bring a question, I'll ask you to apply the codes to it. So when you've learned to apply the codes, it's a matter of time. Every single day, you're going to unlock something new. So I don't want to apply the codes for you because there's 2 other codes. But people are able to answer their own questions. So when somebody says, I found my true north, now I know that I can trust my own decisions. I know what intuition is because, intuition is not something, maybe I feel this way. You kind of run your intuition through these tenets. And so that means that you've set off this journey of healing. You feel less anxious. You sleep better. Of course, I'd say the side effects are you have better digestion. For women, the better menstrual health, better fertility. But you notice right away when you're not anxious anymore. And you notice right away when you're sleeping much better. Everybody can notice that. Then you digest better. So I know that you've graduated. I say it's also not a program, it's a reprogram. Your life begins when this ends, when the 21-day ends.
It's interesting. You had mentioned something earlier, a lot of humming. And my wife is very big into now looking at sound frequencies because there's all this data coming out, and certain sound frequencies can destroy cancers. They can treat different issues and diseases. Tell me your take on the humming.
So I will tell you, by the way, what you're talking about has been a part of Ayurveda. We call it Raga Chikitsa. Raga means sound and Chikitsa means treatment. So there's actually texts, like thick Sanskrit texts written on it. So, 7 endocrine glands that relate to 7 chakras that relate to 7 notes, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, right? So when you can reconfigure it in the right way, you're creating an environment where the right neurotransmitters are being released, right hormones. So the sound can stimulate a gland to release a certain neurotransmitter. This is what Ayurveda believes.
That's
But
awesome.
humming works a little differently because every inhale is solar, because it puts your nervous system in the sympathetic mode, in the fight or flight mode. Basically, your body is ready for action. But every exhale puts your body in the rest and digest mode, in the parasympathetic mode. That's why when we have really busy days, by the end of the day, we are like, you sigh. The body forces a sigh. But when you're humming, you're automatically elongating the exhales. So you're going in a pattern of exhales. So people say, hey, you're happy, you're humming, but humming will also make you happy because it will reset your nervous system to the parasympathetic state instantly.
So interesting.
So in one of our tools, right? So we have 3 types of tools. We have preventative tools, we have tools on the battlefield, and we have repair tools. And we all need all 3. So it's like 21 days. And I love to hear at the end of it that this was so easy. And before people start, they're like, how deep can we go in 21 days? It's only 21 days.
Sure.
By the end of that, you've like gone to the core of the earth and you've come back to the shallow waters. And really, if people do this right, that is the experience. I'll tell you, I've had that experience in my life through this. And I value it very deeply.
I have 2 quick questions. One is about breathing. Can you talk to our listeners and viewers on the proper way to breathe?
I'm going to talk about what I've learned from the yogic and the Ayurvedic science.
That's important because most yogis will tell you that the majority of people in the world do not breathe properly. So you'll tell us.
Yeah. So what I've learned, and I also want to say I grew up in a household where my mom's solution to everything was come back to your breath. And it was annoying as hell, but it has really worked for me. Everything, doesn't matter. Like there can be an earthquake, she's like, come back to your breath. That's how I gave birth to both my daughters. I did not let a single shriek. I was in coma, literally. It felt like that because I was present with my breath. So the right way to breathe, right? Firstly, your breath is very telling of the state of your mind. So even if you know the right way to breathe, but where mentally, the minute you go into fight or flight, your breath will become short and rapid. So your breath is a very good, like a teller of everything. But let's say you're doing it consciously and you want to practice breathing. The right way to breathe is to breathe through your nose. And the other right way to breathe is while you're breathing through your nose, you don't actually want to focus too much on your abdomen or your diaphragm. But what you want to focus on is just the path of your nostrils, like right at the top of your nose. And like let air blow through that and feel that, and automatically you'll take a full breath. So sometimes in people's effort to take a deep breath, they expand all kinds of muscles in their body and they don't feel as comfortable. But if you just focus on this little triangular shape here and you inhale through the nose and you slowly exhale through the nose. The slow exhale is great. It's resonance breathing. So I think if you can master that, then you are more likely to come back to that steady breathing when you notice that it has become short. Mouth breathing is not half as deep. So mouth breathing now today, there's a lot of research. There's tapes to put you to sleep and, so that you can breathe through your nose. So if you're breathing through your mouth, your immune system, you can take any supplements, but what I've seen pretty consistently in my practice that people who just get sick all the time for no reason, we realize that they're mouth breathers.
How does your diaphragm work? When you're breathing, should your stomach be pushed out when you take a deep breath or should it be pulled in? And this is the big thing that they say is everyone breathes wrong because they fill their belly up with air.
So I'll tell you now, that is the one thing, that you don't want to focus on much. Because I'll tell you, people who've gone through a lot of trauma will do it differently.
Okay.
But it is telling, if you breathe through your belly, become a big belly breather, then there has been some trauma.
Okay.
That it's hard for you to open that chest region. But normally, if you just focus on this, there'll be a little bit of diaphragm expansion and then it'll go into your belly. There are certain techniques, right? So breath work has become such a large concept. It's like yoga. It could mean anything. But there are many things you can play with your inhale, exhale. You can take your breath through your 7 chakras, certain key endocrine glands. You can do breath work to release stored energy from the base of your spine. You can there's a lot of play that you can do with your breath. But I just tell everybody that if you can just focus on this little triangular, your nose, and inhale, you will breathe deeply. But as a practitioner, and I'm a certified pranayama instructor as well, when I see people breathing more through their belly, babies will breathe through their belly and that's fine.
Sure.
But otherwise there's been, there's some trauma, deep-rooted trauma that's stored.
Emotional trauma,
childhood trauma, something, so that it's very hard for them to open their hearts.
And then the 21 days that you're talking about. I know, I'm a big the 21 days you're talking about, for people that are listening, let's just say we've got a bunch of people that want to do this with you. Do they have to be present in New York with you? Do you do this virtually? Do you meet with people every day? I'm curious as well.
Of course. We do this with people all around the world. You don't have to be present in New York. We have people from Australia all the way to Vancouver, Canada, Amazing. Just everything in between. And I meet with them over Zoom 9 times in those 21 days, but I'm in touch with them every day via group chat. They have personal facilitators. We have a whole system in place. It's a very airtight program, but they can be anywhere in the world and you can still participate. The only thing that I say is that you want to be ready. You want to be conscious. You really want to have that healing. You want to be ready to stop treating. You want to become ready to become your own expert because your body already knows,
Obviously as plastic surgeons,
we're getting to the good stuff.
I love this conversation.
This is kind of a segue into...
She's been saying, where is this? Come on.
Our listeners and viewers, they tune in because they want to know, how can I look better?
And feel better, but the looking, you don't have to, like we talked about, it's a combination, right?
Yeah, it's a big component. But at the same time, they're saying, how does this practice help me, even though we understand the concepts now, how does it make my skin look younger? How does it make me feel like I'm aging less rapidly? How would you answer that?
Right. So, we talked about this a little earlier before we started recording that a lot of people believe today that disease is a result of aging, right? I'm going to first talk about how we look at that aging process. The third tenet is that everything in life has these 3 cycles. I'm not going to go deeply into it: building, transformation, decline. And on the other side of transformation, things start to decline. When you've kind of gone over that reproductive age, whether you're a fruit, you've ripened, then you decay. doesn't matter. It's spring becomes summer, then it's winter, it's decay, everything dries out. Like that's just how the world works. Now, but let's talk about when you understand this transformation, the youth period, you can elongate youth. That means you are kind of slowing down aging. That's how I look at it. So in Ayurveda, right, you start off, this is my analogy, that we start off as grapes, we end up as raisins. What has happened is this kind of fluid loss. Mm-hmm. Another analogy is that a lamp full of oil, if you look at an adolescent, a teenager, it's like, their skin is also shiny. Yeah. There's hot fire with them then. And then your oil starts to deplete. And then that flame eventually crackles and everything dries out. Mm-hmm. Now, while that is a normal process of, aging, you want to say, how can I hold my fuel and how can I hold my fire? Once again, it's that warmth and moisture, right? A lot of people are very solar. So we've learned to look great, but feel horrible inside. Mm-hmm. That our skin can look young and supple, but inside we could be really decaying and deteriorating. So you want to do that from all the way within as well. And when you start living in this manner, where you're not overly solar, when you're constantly being able to come back to your lunar, if you notice, right, people who do what they love to do, they actually don't age because they're doing while they're being.
Sure.
So you do it in your mind because you find that state of flow, and we have active tools for it, so you really feel it. You do it in your body through the food that you live. You think about the hours you sleep. Again, you balance your solar and lunar. The relationships you have, you understand which ones are bringing too much intensity, which ones are like holding you, making you complacent. And you bring that to all your elements. I'll tell you, my mom is 70, my aunt is 72, and my other aunt, these are 3 women from 3 different parts of India, not related, but they all got married in the same family and they learned Ayurveda. Listen, I all have dark hair. My 72-year-old aunt, like all dark hair, never dyed. I didn't know what PCOS, PCOD was till I moved to the West. Everybody has had natural vaginal births. And the proof is in the pudding. You see this all the time. I know I've had my older, I only have 2 children, 16 years ago. If you ask me where I feel aging in the last 16 years, I genuinely don't. But I also know that when I have periods of intensity, I can see everything starting to dry up. My throat is drying up. My eyes dry up. I already know that if I'm drying is dying.
That's really fascinating.
And then, of course, Ayurveda has a lot of other like skincare ingredients, ideas, tools, and it believes in aesthetics. It's a big part of it because absolutely. You look at the world through your senses and they're very, very important. Look at the colors, butterflies, everything. So Ayurveda has a lot for that as well. Fragrances, oil facial massage techniques, lymphatic drainage techniques. Of course, I'm using the jargon that we understand, but Ayurveda has its own jargon for it and understanding.
You don't do any of those, though. You don't do any of those types of
in the program?
Treatments. Yeah.
All of it.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. Great. I mean, whatever people want to learn, I'll teach them because when people bring their questions, we'll say, how do we apply the codes? So if this is the problem, if your skin is dry, where does it stand? What is the antidote? That's wonderful. So all of it.
So it's a full service 21-day and it's catered to each person's necessities, so to say.
So I'll tell you, every cohort, that's how it just happens energetically. There's something common about them. Somehow that's how they just fall in place. The universe has designed it that way. So we end up doing, things accordingly. It happens. It takes us in that direction. And then for every cohort, I'll offer 1 extra free workshop. So somebody wanted skin and hair care. There are people who wanted to see how I cook in my kitchen. People wanted to learn more about taste science because that's another whole science, the 6 tastes. So whatever people want, I'll give them. You ask me and I'll deliver. So.
And out of my curiosity, how did you end up in New York? Why did you leave India and come to, because, again, you're, in a sense, for lack of a better word, you're a savior for a lot of people. If you never would have come to New York, no one would have known who you are, So it's, for a lot of people, thousands that I see, I looked at your website, you've been a savior. Why New York? Why the States? Why did you move? It was a man.
A wedlock which felt like a headlock.
I said, it's a man. It's got to be a man. It's got to be.
No, but it was an arranged marriage. And my joke is there was no arrangement possible after 14 years. But it was also a very, very great period of my life because in those 14 years, I grew up in such a large family, right? So I was always looking outside. It gave me a chance to look within.
That's
and
awesome.
I think, literally in those 14 years, I sat in a cave and I just said, I wanted to just connect all the dots of the universe, really sharpen my practice, But I did live in a silo for a long time, but it was amazing. And the journey was just beyond amazing. So yeah, I'm really happy that, of course, I miss home. I'm not going to lie that, India still feels like home and I go back a ton. But this is where life is today.
That's great. We have a nurse that we've known for a long time that practices Ayurvedic medicine in the sense that she's a nurse injector. She injects a lot of Botox and fillers, but she also has a side of her practice that's these facial oils and she puts on this calming music and helps them breathe and she's got it's a very unique practice and people love it. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts of adding some of the conventional cosmetic treatments that we do with Ayurvedic cosmetic treatments?
I think it's amazing. And I tell everybody, right? So people would assume that I say no to everything else. I'll say I'll meet you where you're at. You want to keep your morning black coffee? Let's keep it. Let's make it half. You want to keep your evening, whatever it is. But we want to create more coping mechanisms while you're doing that. So I meet people where they're at. They want to do a combination and integration of two. Let's do an integration of two. I think it's incredible. I honestly think, firstly, it's incredible that both of you have curiosity to understand holistic sciences, to even see if there is room to bring them in. And I know that even I'm sure from your experience as well, like you understand, like when the breath slows down, something happens, magic happens. Like there are times where I'll see, for example, right, like all I tell people is when you bring a lot of focus here to the center of your eyes, you're not in flow, you start breathing. All you got to do is just like kind of relax, sit back, almost like you were lying on a pillow, breathe in the back of your head. These are little subtle things, and they make a big difference. They relax your facial muscles. They'll relax your jaw. And that's a big thing in Ayurveda, by the way. There are a lot of treatments that'll help you to relax your jaw, even like chisel your face. So it's actually crazy the amount of things that there are. Yeah.
No, it's great. It's actually right down the same, same kind of notion that you're saying. There were some studies that were done by plastic surgeons over the last 10 years showing how your mental clarity and where you are in your mind is very important to how you heal.
Your outcomes.
They actually did a breast augmentation study and they showed that patients that were allowed to resume activities earlier had better results because mentally they felt better. So yes, we're very interested in the work you do because it really helps our patients heal. We can make them look amazing, right? But if they don't feel good inside, none of that matters. Yep. So when they look at themselves in the mirror, even the facelift is perfect. If they don't feel like they're in a good place, it doesn't matter. So I think it really does matter to make people feel really healthy mentally. So then physically you can kind of, and cosmetically it could fall into place.
No, that's actually a really great point. I have a post-surgery protocol for people. Doesn't matter what surgery you've gone for, but how do you expedite healing? And honestly, it's mind, body, both, right? So there's a certain diet, there's certain foods that will allow you to heal faster. There's certain music. When I did my postpartum, I had a playlist. I had everything. There's playlist, there was special food, there's a certain environment. And you let your body do the work for you. We think we have to do everything ourselves. You don't have to. Mm-hmm. Mechanically, like you talked about the music, you talk about the certain foods, but you want to stay in that space where you can heal very quickly. Mm-hmm. And I think it's incredible that you guys are open to that and think about that.
For us, it's not thinking outside the box. It's adding adjuncts that will only accelerate our current result. But we see a role for all of this. And, I'm sure you've heard a million stories like this, but being in this particular space and when you see the journey of these patients, how has it changed your journey? When you hear this feedback, and I can't imagine that you remain stagnant. Again, I feel like you're always moving. It's like a natural flow. How has that type of feedback shaped your own journey?
To be very honest with you, I think that's a great question because that's what I tell my mom, that in the last 6 months since I've introduced this as a program, I'd say I've changed towards 6 lifetimes. Because firstly, I get to do what I think I could not even imagine. Like, it's why I was born, right? So that creates a sense of dissolution. You kind of are lost. But more than anything, it also creates responsibility, right? I have tremendous amounts of gratitude. I cannot for a moment believe that this comes from me. I always try to remember that this comes through me. This has to be some larger download because it works so well. It feels like a hack to live. And I think it has kept me more and more responsible, more and more accountable, more and more in flow. So I just feel like every single day I'm shouting Eureka for something else.
That's great.
Love that.
That is wonderful. If there's just a couple of parting words you want to just tell our listeners and viewers that might not have the money to see you or the time to see you or aren't able to do it, what would they be? A couple of pro tips, I guess.
I'd say that believe that, while it's hard for you to trust today that your body knows, believe that your body knows. It is a journey and you want to make that journey, which means every time you hear something, test it for yourself in your mind, in your body, see how that feels. If it feels warm and moist, it's probably the right answer. If it feels anything else, then you've deviated.
It's so interesting. I think we become, I can speak for myself, become more disillusioned with traditional medicine when we look at some of the potential out there, right? Even reading this book called Burned by Ponsor, he's a PhD, talked about our basic metabolic rate and how we've been taught forever, the more you exercise, the more calories you burn. Turns out it's not the case.
Thank God.
And, it's just, we're finding more and more that the entire paradigms that we've learned and been taught in traditional medicine is completely wrong. Even from dietary choices and, things like that. So I think that's why this sparks such an interest, because we're finding out that the body is so complex and powerful that probably 50 years from now, we're going to say we don't need any medicines at all. We just use our own innate ability to heal ourselves. And that's kind of where this is rooted.
That is correct. And the only reason I think we've lost that connection, why we can never learn another language like a first language, is because there's too much intellect that comes into play, too much information. So it's about going back to your insight and wisdom. And the 3 principles, for example, a lot of exercise, right? So now I'll ask people who's on somebody on day 15, a lot of exercise. Is that solar? Is that lunar? I'm going to ask the 2 of you. It's very solar. Your body is already dry. You can't go to sleep. You're having 5 cups of coffee. Of course, inflammation is the problem of the world today. Because inflammation inside, global warming outside. Again, as is the macro, such is the micro.
Sure.
So it's all related, right? No wonder it's like that. So people start understanding it. I want people to apply the codes themselves. People have been in relationships which suddenly they feel so either stagnant or feel so hot inside. So you want to come back to just warm and moist.
If you like this video, you're going to love this one.
Research has also shown that people post-surgical, if they have more anger, fear, frustration, they have a much higher rate of complications, rehospitalization, all of these things.